My name is Diamond Hale. I'm originally from Norfolk, Virginia, which is next to Virginia Beach. I did undergrad at Johns Hopkins University. I pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I currently go to grad school now, also at Johns Hopkins University, Bloomberg School of Public Health, studying mental health with a concentration in racial inequity.
Righty. Okay, what social justice issues are you passionate about?
I think that the question is loaded best just because of the intersectionality of my life. I think, number one, I fight for equity in general, like the equality of everyone. That doesn't have to be an identity that I personally identify with, but the initial ones that I do think of when it comes to mind are racial equality, gender equality, and then I've been a part of LGBTQ Life Office and the different petitions and protests that they've had, and I don't identify with any of those identities, but I think you can't fight for one person without acknowledging everyone else that also still needs help. I think it's selfish of me to say that my one identity is more important than someone else's. And I think equity for everyone is really the goal.
Why would you want to fight for everybody?
Because I would want someone to fight for me that didn't identify with the identities that I do. I don't ever want to come across a person that I want to know that when we're standing there together, though they don't identify with me, they respect who I am and they acknowledge who I am and all my identities. And I think that's the biggest part of social justice, is the acknowledgement that someone else that may not be you matters and has a right to say what they want and exist, just merely exist.
Would you like to talk a bit about what identities you identify with?
Yeah, so I identify as Black, I identify as a woman. I think those two make a huge part of my life. Identify as low SES. I didn't come from a lot, and neither does my family, but those struggles are, I don't think they consume my life, especially at this point. We're at a school that I'm in, but it definitely is something that I think about on a daily basis, nonetheless. I think those three are the ones that come to mind initially.
Are you passionate about any specific movements?
So I think the Black Lives Matters movement, but also the women's movement in general. I think the women's movement has historically marginalized Black women and women of color, but I think now is the time and place for people of all colors and all races to come together. I think we acknowledge the fact that, and historically it has been lacking, and this is the time where I've seen it most prominent and most intersectionality acknowledged more.
Have you ever gone to a protest about any of these issues?
Yeah, I have, though my mother probably would not want me to, because she definitely thinks like safety's first, but I think the first one comes to mind. I think my first protest was actually the college protest for Black Lives Matter movement, especially after the Freddie Gray's death and murder. And it was a powerful feeling to see not only people from Hopkins join into this march, but also like old people, random people that are on the street. I saw people pushing strollers with their babies and holding their kids' hands, and to see that power in such a large number was amazing. I wasn't able to go to the Women's March in DC, but ironically enough, there was one here in Baltimore, right on 33rd and Charles Street. So I actually heard them from my window, and I was like, I have to go outside, I have to be there. And it was amazing to see people, even though they couldn't make it to the bigger march, to see these smaller instances across cities, across neighborhoods, was also amazing to see.
Would you consider yourself an activist?
I think that's such a broad term. I think there are people that do more. I recently have been trying to figure out what my role is, because because I'm still a student, it's hard to be like, I can't really drop everything and be in the front lines at every protest and have that consume my life in that manner. I think I'm a student activist. I believe in educating. I think we need to know our history in order to continue and to grow. I think it's important that we teach kids the importance of like health and importance of like knowing their identities, and I think that's where my role is. I think activism is such a loaded word because we only think about those people that are like dedicate themselves to like being on petitions every Wednesday or whatever day, or like being in front of those marches, organizing in front of the marches. But I think those organizers also acknowledge that we need people in city politics, we need people in federal politics, we need people inside of classrooms, we need people and like in the communities that we're trying to help and trying to empower. So yes, I do consider myself an activist, but I think I consider myself an activist by my definition of being a broader term than what we normally think about.
And lastly, do you think you are in a position where your voice is heard?
Yes, I think that I'm in a position just because of the school that I'm at. I think Hopkins, though with its quirks and with its problems that every institution has, also gives us the ability to have a voice and speak about issues that affect us and also affect others. I think because I came to Hopkins is when I truly started to think about my own identities, because I came from an all-black neighborhood, so I never had to really think about what that meant until I came to a majority white institution. And I think along with the power of like knowing those bigger names, being involved in residential life, being able to start my own organizations on campus, and being a part of the sorority of my Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, being a first black sorority in America. Like, those are all things that help to build who I am and help to build my voice and what I stood for, and the identities that I stand for, and just trying to create the definition of activism, like I said, and being what an activist truly is. I think all those reasons are why I have a voice and why I can use my voice. I think the further I get in my education, I can build a platform to give to other people, but also give a voice to the issues that I believe in. And I think all of those reasons are not solely because of Hopkins and the institution that it is, but because I did come here and I got a chance to experience all of those things and develop who I am as a person.
Just to follow up, is there a specific event that happened that your voice was particularly strong?
I think the creation of Female Leaders of Color here on campus, which is an organization that I started my junior year, was the first time I actually felt that like my voice and the voice of many were able to flourish and create an organization that stood for a group of people that didn't have a place to go to. I had talked about it with various people during my freshman and sophomore year, but then someone's like, okay, well, Hopkins has the money and the opportunity to do something. We have a counterpart organization, MOCA, Men of Color Hopkins Alliance, that's been here for 10 years, and we don't have one for women. So how do we make this happen, and how do we identify a group of people that have a need? And I think that was the petitioning for that, and seeing the group flourish and come to fruition was one of the biggest points at Hopkins where I'm like, okay, like, they're hearing us. They understand that we are here and that we need something to just for us, no matter what that is or how that comes to be. That's important. So I think that was my one instance and my one moment. I'm like, whoa, like someone actually heard what I was saying as an 18-year-old. Like, I'm 22 now, and I'm like, I made a difference in something that can last here at Hopkins. So that was a great feeling.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.